You have spent your whole life reading rooms that were never yours to read. You feel it in the silence between two sentences. You feel it in the way someone's smile doesn't quite reach their eyes. You feel it in a room before a single word is spoken. And here's the part that will be hard to hear. That same gift is the exact thing quietly making you feel more alone than anyone around you realizes. Stay until the end, because there is one moment coming, a single realization, that changes how you see every relationship you've ever had. Not just how others feel about you, how you've been treating yourself. Because the person who understands everyone is often the person no one understands. Most people never notice this pattern in their own life. They just call it being sensitive, or overthinking, or caring too much. But there's something hidden underneath this behavior, something far older than any of those explanations. Think about the last time you walked into a room and immediately sensed the tension, even though everyone was smiling. Think about the last time you knew a friend was hurting before they said a single word. Think about how many times you've adjusted your tone, your energy, your entire presence just to make someone else more comfortable. That's not a coincidence, that's a skill, a finely tuned, deeply developed skill. And skills like that don't appear out of nowhere. They are built. Usually they are built in childhood. Usually they are built out of necessity. Somewhere along the way, you learned that paying close attention to other people's emotions kept you safe. Maybe it was a parent whose mood could shift without warning. Maybe it was a house where silence meant something was about to happen. Maybe it was simply growing up around people who never quite explained what they were feeling, so you had to learn to read it yourself. A child in an environment like that doesn't get the luxury of being unaware. They become a translator, a quiet observer, a small emotional radar constantly scanning the room trying to answer one question over and over again. Is it safe right now? And here's the part most people never talk about. That question doesn't stop when childhood ends. It just gets quieter, it moves underground, it becomes so automatic that you stop noticing you're even asking it. We'll come back to that in a moment. Because first, we need to talk about what this radar actually cost you. When you spend your early years reading rooms instead of living freely inside them, something subtle happens to your sense of self. You start to believe that your value comes from your usefulness to others' emotions, not from simply existing, not from simply being. You become the friend who holds everyone together, the one who notices when someone's quiet, the one who remembers what others forget, the one who shows up even when no one asks you to. And it feels good at first. It feels like purpose. But underneath that purpose, there's often a quieter, sadder truth. You learn to be needed before you learn to be known. Read that again, because that's exactly where the loneliness begins. Being needed and being known are not the same thing. One is about what you provide. The other is about who you actually are, underneath all the providing. And when your entire identity is built around sensing what other people need, there's very little energy left to explore what you need. You become fluent in everyone else's emotional language, while your own stays half-spoken, tucked away in a locked room you rarely visit. That's the real reason so many emotionally intelligent people feel lonely, even when they're surrounded by others. It's not that people don't care about you, it's that you never gave them the chance to. Not fully, because somewhere inside you learned it wasn't safe to be fully seen, only to be fully useful. Think about your closest relationships right now. How much of what people know about you is what you've shown them, carefully, selectively, safely? And how much is the part you keep behind the wall? The part that gets tired, the part that doubts, the part that just wants to be held without having to hold anyone else first? That gap between what you show and what you carry, that's where loneliness lives. Not in the absence of people, in the absence of being truly witnessed. But here's a layer most peoples never see, because it doesn't feel like a wound. It feels like being fine. The better you become at reading others, the less anyone feels the need to check on you. You seem steady. You seem like the one who has it together, so no one thinks to ask if you don't. That's the mechanism hiding underneath your emotional intelligence. It doesn't just drain you quietly. It signals, without a single word, that you don't need anything back. And people believe that signal, so, without meaning to, they stop offering. You taught the room how to read you as someone who doesn't need reading. This shows up everywhere, once you know how to look for it. In friendships where you are always the one checking in, and rarely the one being checked on. In relationships where you sense your partner's mood shift before they've even noticed it themselves. Yet no one thinks to ask about the weather inside you. You wear it well, this emotional armor, so well that people forget there's someone underneath it, still waiting, quietly, to be asked how they're really doing. And somewhere inside, something starts to feel like an abandoned garden, still alive, still capable of blooming, just quietly overgrown because you spent every season tending to everyone else's. But here's where everything begins to shift. This pattern, as painful as it is, was never a flaw, it was protection. A younger version of you built this radar because it was the safest way to survive an environment that required constant awareness. That radar wasn't weakness, it was intelligence shaped by necessity, doing exactly what it was designed to do. You weren't born lonely. You became skilled at emotional safety before you were ever taught emotional belonging. Those are two very different things, and confusing them has kept you stuck for a long time. Emotional safety asks, what does this person need from me right now? Emotional belonging asks, can I exist here exactly as I am without performing anything at all? Most emotionally intelligent people have mastered the first question and never been given permission to ask the second. And there's a quieter reason this cycle keeps repeating. Without realizing it, you are often drawn to people who need exactly what you're good at giving, not because you don't deserve better, because being needed feels familiar, and familiar feels safe, even when it isn't nourishing. So you keep finding rooms full of people who require translating, and keep wondering why none of them ever turn around and translate you. It was never bad luck. It was a pattern choosing itself, quietly, from somewhere inside you that learned this a long time ago, back when being useful was the only version of love available. So here's the deeper realization, the one hiding underneath all of this. Your emotional intelligence was never the problem. The problem is that you were never taught that it deserves to be received, not just given. You are allowed to be understood, not just understanding. You are allowed to need someone to notice you without having to explain why you deserve it. You are allowed to stop scanning the room just for a moment and simply be in it. There is likely a version of you, somewhere back in childhood, still waiting for someone to ask what you were feeling instead of what everyone else was feeling. That conversation never finished. It just went quiet, the way conversations do when no one shows up to have them. So you carry it, unfinished, into every room you walk into now, still half hoping someone will notice, still not quite believing they will. That's not weakness. That's an open thread wearing the disguise of maturity, and it only stays open because it has never once been said out loud, not even to yourself. That doesn't mean the ability to sense others disappears. It means it stops being your only way of connecting. It becomes something you choose to offer, not something you're forced to perform just to feel safe. And slowly, when you begin to let people see the parts of you that aren't polished or composed or endlessly attuned, something quiet happens. The loneliness doesn't vanish overnight, but it softens, because for the first time, you're not just reading the room. You're finally letting the room read you. Maybe that's what this feeling has been trying to tell you all along. Not that something is wrong with how deeply you feel things, but that it's time someone finally felt them with you, instead of you feeling them alone on behalf of everyone else. You were never too much. You were simply carrying a skill no one taught you how to put down. Your emotional intelligence was never the flaw. It was the language you learned to survive in, and maybe slowly it can become the language you're finally loved in too. And for tonight, that's enough to know. If any part of this felt like it was written about you, I'd like to know one thing. When was the last time someone read you the way you read everyone else? Tell me in the comments. Sometimes just saying it out loud is the first step toward not carrying it alone. And if you want to keep understanding the quiet patterns running underneath your own mind, stay close. Because there's another one we haven't talked about yet. The reason the people who give the most love are often the hardest to love back. That one might hit even deeper than this one did. Until then, take care of yourself the way you take care of everyone else. See you in the next one.